standing in my childhood bedroom, staring at the foreclosure notice that would destroy everything my mother believed about our family's wealth. I finally understood the cruel irony. For 28 years, she had called me the family failure, while my golden brother received endless praise and financial support. But here I was holding proof that every luxury she had ever enjoyed, every designer handbag, every family vacation had been secretly funded by the daughter she considered worthless. The truth was about to shatter more than just her perfect world. Before we dive into this family revenge story that changed everything I want to know, where are you watching from today? If you are ready to see how karma finally caught up with the people who underestimated me, smash that like button and subscribe, because this story has more twists than you can imagine. Trust me, you will want to stick around until the end to see justice served. My name is Seraphina, and I had always been the invisible daughter in the Walsh family, while my brother Marcus received standing ovations for mediocre achievements. I quietly built a successful consulting business from my tiny apartment. My mother, Patricia Walsh, never missed an opportunity to remind me that I was a disappointment compared to my Harvard-educated brother who worked at a prestigious law firm. The irony was suffocating. Every family gathering became a performance where Marcus showcased his supposed success, while I sat in the corner enduring comments about my unmarried status and my choice to work from home. Patricia would gesture dramatically toward Marcus and announce to relatives, "This is my successful son," then glance at me with barely concealed disdain, adding, "And this is Seraphina. She tries." What nobody knew was that Marcus had been unemployed for 18 months. His law firm had quietly let him go after discovering his cocaine addiction and his habit of billing clients for work he never completed. But Marcus was a master manipulator, and Patricia was his willing audience. The truth began unraveling 3 months ago when Marcus appeared at my apartment at 2 in the morning, desperate and sweating. He begged me for $50,000 to cover what he called a temporary cash flow problem. Against my better judgment, I transferred the money that night. It was not the first time, but I had convinced myself it would be the last. 2 weeks later, he returned, asking for $30,000 more. Then, $25,000. Each time he promised this would solve everything permanently. Each time I found myself opening my banking app and watching my savings disappear. The amounts were devastating. But what hurt more was his casual assumption that I would always be there to clean up his mess while receiving none of the credit for keeping our family afloat. The breaking point came when I discovered the scope of his deception. While organizing financial documents for my accountant, I found Marcus had been forging documents to maintain his facade of success. Bank statements showing a healthy salary were complete fabrications. The luxury car he drove belonged to a friend who was out of the country. Even his expensive suits were purchased with credit cards that were maxed out within weeks. But the real shock came when I started tracing where my money had actually gone. Marcus was not just funding his own lifestyle with my transfers. He had been giving Patricia expensive gifts and claiming they came from his income. The diamond earrings she wore to church every Sunday purchased with my money. The weekend spa retreats she bragged about to her friends, funded by my business profits. The designer handbag she carried to every social event while telling people about her successful son. Bought with money I had earned through 18-hour workdays. I felt physically sick as the pattern became clear. For over 2 years, I had unknowingly been funding the very lifestyle Patricia used to humiliate me. Every time she praised Marcus for his generosity and criticized my lack of family contribution, She was actually celebrating my own success while dismissing me as worthless. The financial records painted a devastating picture. Marcus owed me over $300,000 money he had systematically stolen to maintain his image as the golden child. But worse than the financial loss was the emotional manipulation. He had weaponized Patricia's favoritism, knowing she would never question his story while always doubting mine. My breaking point arrived during Easter dinner when Patricia announced to the entire extended family that Marcus had just received another promotion and would be buying her a new car for Mother's Day. She looked directly at me while saying this, her expression making it clear that she viewed Marcus's success as proof of my inadequacy. The car she was describing with such pride had been purchased with money from my business account just 3 days earlier. That night, I made 2 decisions that would change everything. First, I hired a forensic accountant to trace every dollar Marcus had taken from me. Second, I installed security cameras throughout my apartment and began recording every interaction with my family members. I realized that exposing Marcus would require more than just financial evidence. I needed to document the pattern of emotional abuse and manipulation that had allowed this fraud to continue for years. The forensic accountant's report was even worse than I had imagined. Marcus had not only stolen my money, but had also forged my signature on several occasions to access funds I never authorized. He had created an entire fictional narrative about his career, complete with fake business cards and fabricated client references. Most shocking of all, he had been secretly recording Patricia's praise for his generosity and sharing those recordings with his friends as proof of his family's respect for him. As I sat in my living room, surrounded by evidence of years of systematic deception, I realized this was not just about money. This was about a family dynamic that had allowed one person to destroy another's mental health and financial security while being celebrated as the family hero. Marcus had not just stolen my money. He had stolen my mother's love and respect by using my own success against me. The financial fraud was devastating, but the emotional manipulation was worse. Patricia genuinely believed Marcus was supporting the family while I contributed nothing. She had no idea that every gift she treasured from him, every moment of pride she felt about his success, was actually built on my sacrifices and achievements. I spent the next week documenting everything. Bank transfers, forged documents, recorded conversations, and most importantly, a detailed timeline showing exactly how my money had flowed through Marcus to Patricia and back into their shared delusion of his success. The evidence was overwhelming, but I knew that exposing Marcus would also mean destroying Patricia's entire understanding of our family dynamic. The moment of truth was approaching, but I was not prepared for how ugly things would become before justice was finally served. I chose Mother's Day for the confrontation because Patricia had planned an elaborate family brunch to celebrate Marcus's latest achievement. A promotion that existed only in his imagination and was funded entirely by my latest transfer of $40,000. She had invited my aunts, uncles, and cousins, turning what should have been a family celebration into another public humiliation session where Marcus would be praised while I was ignored. Patricia had spent weeks preparing for this brunch, ordering expensive catering and decorating the house with fresh flowers, all paid for, with money she believed came from Marcus's successful career. She kept calling me to help with preparations while simultaneously making comments about how I should learn from my brother's example of family generosity. I arrived at the family home carrying what appeared to be a thoughtful Mother's Day gift, a beautiful photo album bound in leather. Patricia smiled when she saw it, but her expression cooled when she realized it was from me rather than Marcus. She set it aside without opening it, focusing instead on the expensive jewelry box Marcus had presented with great fanfare. The brunch proceeded exactly as I had expected. Marcus regaled everyone with stories about his demanding but rewarding career, describing client meetings and business trips that had never happened. Patricia beamed with pride, frequently interrupting to point out how grateful she was to have such a successful and generous son. My presence was barely acknowledged, except when Patricia needed someone to refill serving dishes or clear plates. The breaking point came when my Aunt Helen asked Marcus about his investment strategy, commenting on how impressed she was by his financial success at such a young age. Marcus launched into an elaborate explanation of his portfolio management and real estate acquisitions, describing properties he had never seen and investments he had never made. Every word was a lie funded by my money. Patricia could not contain her pride. She stood up and announced to the entire table, "I am so blessed to have Marcus. He takes care of everything and makes sure I never have to worry about money." Some children, she glanced meaningfully at me, think that success means working all the time and never contributing to family. But Marcus understands that family comes first. The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this pointed criticism. Several relatives looked at me with sympathy, but nobody challenged Patricia's narrative. This was exactly the moment I had been waiting for. I stood up calmly and walked to where Patricia had placed my gift. "Mom, I think you should open this now. It contains some family photos I thought you would enjoy seeing." Patricia sighed dramatically but opened the album. The first page contained a photo of her wearing the diamond earrings Marcus had given her for Christmas, along with a bank statement showing the withdrawal from my account to purchase them. She stared at the page confused. I continued speaking as she turned the pages. "The next photo shows you at the spa retreat Marcus arranged for your birthday. Below it is the credit card statement showing that I paid for that trip." The room was completely quiet now. Patricia's hands were trembling slightly as she continued turning pages. Each photo showed her enjoying a gift or experience she attributed to Marcus, paired with financial documents proving the money came from me. This album contains documentation of every gift, every trip, every dinner, and every luxury you have enjoyed over the past 3 years that you believed came from Marcus. The total amount is $347,000, all taken from my business without my knowledge or consent. Marcus had gone pale and was staring at his plate, unable to meet anyone's eyes. Patricia looked up at me with confusion, turning to anger. "What are you talking about? Marcus has a successful career. He earns his own money." I pulled out my phone and played a recording I had made 3 weeks earlier. Marcus's voice filled the room. "She will never find out, Mom. Seraphina is so focused on her work that she barely checks her bank statements. I can keep taking money from her account as long as you keep praising me and making her feel like the family failure." The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia dropped the album and several photos scattered across the floor. Marcus finally looked up, his face flushed with panic. "That recording is taken out of context," he stammered. "I was joking around with a friend." I played another recording, this one from just 2 days earlier. "The stupid thing is, every time Mom tells Seraphina she is worthless compared to me, she is actually criticizing herself. Mom's entire lifestyle depends on Seraphina's money, but she is too proud and stupid to realize it." My Uncle Robert spoke first. "Marcus, is this true? Have you been stealing money from your sister?" Before Marcus could answer, I continued with my presentation. The album also contains copies of forged bank statements Marcus created to maintain his fictional career, fabricated employment letters, and evidence of identity theft, where he used my information to open credit accounts. Patricia was staring at Marcus with growing horror. "You told me you got promoted last month. You said you were buying me a car." "I am buying you a car," Marcus said desperately. "I just needed some temporary help with cash flow." I laughed bitterly. "Temporary help you have been systematically stealing from me for over 3 years. You owe me almost $400,000, and you have not held a real job since you were fired 18 months ago." The room erupted as relatives began asking questions and demanding explanations. Patricia sat in stunned silence, clutching the jewelry box Marcus had given her that morning, now understanding it was purchased with stolen money. But the real shock came when my cousin Jennifer stood up and said, "Marcus tried to borrow money from me last month. He said he was having problems with his bank and needed $50,000 urgently. When I refused, he told me that Seraphina was selfish and would not help family members in need." Other relatives began sharing similar stories. Marcus had approached nearly everyone in our extended family, spinning different versions of his financial troubles, while consistently blaming me for being unsupportive and selfish. The pattern was clear to everyone now. Marcus had not just stolen my money, he had systematically destroyed my reputation within our family while building his own image as the responsible, successful son. Patricia finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "I do not understand. How could you do this to your sister? How could you let me believe these lies?" Marcus's response revealed the depth of his manipulation. "She has more money than she knows what to do with. She lives like a hermit and never spends anything on family. I was just redistributing wealth to where it could do the most good." That statement would prove to be his biggest mistake because it was recorded by the private investigator I had hired to document this confrontation. The admission of deliberate theft, combined with his complete lack of remorse, would become crucial evidence in the legal proceedings that followed. The aftermath of the Mother's Day revelation was immediate and devastating. Patricia locked herself in her bedroom for 3 days, refusing to speak to anyone. Marcus disappeared entirely, leaving behind only a voicemail claiming he was seeking professional help and would make everything right. But I knew this was just another manipulation tactic, buying time to figure out his next move. What I had not expected was how quickly other family members would rally to my side once they understood the truth. My Aunt Helen called me the next morning with information that changed everything. She had been quietly investigating Marcus's behavior for months after noticing inconsistencies in his stories about work and finances. Helen had worked as a banking compliance officer for 30 years before retiring, and she had immediately recognized red flags in Marcus's explanations of his income and spending patterns. She had been documenting her concerns but had hesitated to voice them because she did not want to cause family drama. "Seraphina, I need to show you something," she said when we met at a coffee shop downtown. She handed me a folder containing printouts of Marcus's social media activity going back 2 years. The evidence was damning. Marcus had been running multiple online personas, including fake LinkedIn profiles, claiming employment at companies that had never heard of him. He had created elaborate fictional narratives about business trips, client meetings, and professional achievements, complete with photos stolen from other people's accounts. But worse than the fake professional profiles were the personal posts where he mocked me to his friends. Screenshot after screenshot showed Marcus making fun of my work ethic, calling me a pathetic workaholic who was too stupid to realize she was being used. He had even shared photos of expensive purchases he had made with my money, joking about how easy it was to manipulate his gullible sister. The most painful discovery was a group chat where Marcus regularly shared stories about family gatherings, laughing about how Patricia favored him over me, and describing in detail how he had convinced our mother that I was selfish and unsuccessful. He had turned my emotional abuse into entertainment for his friends. Helen was not finished. I also found evidence that Marcus has been doing this to other people, not just you. He has borrowed money from at least 6 different family friends, always with elaborate stories about temporary financial difficulties. She showed me a spreadsheet she had created tracking Marcus's debt to various people. The total amount was staggering. Over $700,000 borrowed from friends' family members, and even strangers he had met through online networking groups. "This is organized fraud," Helen said firmly. "Marcus is not just stealing from family. He is running a systematic con game, and you are his primary funding source." I felt sick as the scope of his deception became clear. Marcus had not just destroyed my relationship with Patricia. He had used my money to fund a criminal enterprise that victimized dozens of innocent people. But Helen had more surprises. She had been quietly reaching out to other family members, sharing her concerns and gathering information. My Uncle Robert had agreed to help, using his connections in law enforcement to investigate Marcus's activities. My cousin Jennifer had volunteered to serve as a witness, and several family friends had come forward with their own stories of being deceived by Marcus. Within a week, we had assembled what Helen called our Justice Coalition, a group of family members and friends who were committed to exposing Marcus's crimes and helping me recover my stolen money. The group included Helen's forensic accounting expertise, Robert's law enforcement connections, Jennifer's documentation of Marcus's fraudulent activities, and several other relatives who had been quietly gathering evidence for months. Our first major breakthrough came when Robert's police contact agreed to investigate Marcus's activities as potential wire fraud and identity theft. The federal charges would carry serious prison time if Marcus was convicted, and the investigation would freeze his assets and prevent him from accessing any remaining funds. But we faced a major obstacle. Patricia was still defending Marcus despite the overwhelming evidence. She had convinced herself that his actions were motivated by love for family rather than greed, and she was actively working to undermine our efforts to hold him accountable. Patricia had hired her own lawyer and was threatening to sue me for destroying the family with false accusations. She claimed that I was jealous of Marcus's success and had fabricated evidence to make him look bad. Most painfully, she was telling relatives that I was the real problem in the family and that Marcus was being unfairly persecuted. The situation escalated when Patricia organized what she called a family intervention designed to pressure me into dropping all charges against Marcus and accepting responsibility for the conflict. She invited dozens of relatives and family friends to a meeting at the church where she planned to publicly accuse me of lying about Marcus's crimes. I knew this meeting was a trap, but Helen convinced me we should attend because it would provide an opportunity to present our evidence to the entire extended family simultaneously. We spent days preparing our presentation, organizing documents, and witness statements that would prove Marcus's guilt beyond any reasonable doubt. The night before the meeting, I received an unexpected phone call from my high school friend Maya, who had become a successful investigative journalist. She had heard about the family conflict through mutual friends and offered to help expose Marcus's crimes through her media connections. "This is bigger than just your family," Maya explained. I have been investigating financial fraud targeting young professionals, and Marcus's scheme fits a pattern I have been tracking. If we can document his methods, we might be able to help other victims and prevent future crimes. Maya's involvement changed everything. She brought professional investigative skills and media resources that our family coalition lacked. More importantly, she helped me understand that Marcus's abuse was not just a personal family issue. It was part of a broader pattern of financial predators targeting successful women and exploiting family dynamics to commit fraud. With Maya's help, we discovered that Marcus had been using dating apps and professional networking sites to identify potential victims. He would target women who appeared financially successful but socially isolated, then gradually build relationships designed to facilitate financial exploitation. The evidence was overwhelming, but we knew Patricia's church meeting would be our only opportunity to present the truth to our entire family before Marcus disappeared permanently or destroyed additional evidence. As I prepared for what felt like a trial, where I would be defending not just my financial losses, but my entire reputation and place in the family, I realized this conflict had revealed something important about the people in my life. The relatives who truly cared about me had rallied to support justice, while those who preferred comfortable lies over difficult truths had sided with Patricia and Marcus. The meeting was scheduled for Sunday afternoon, and I knew it would determine not just whether Marcus faced consequences for his crimes, but whether I would have any family relationships worth preserving. But I had underestimated both the depth of Patricia's denial and Marcus's desperation to avoid accountability. The confrontation that followed would test every alliance we had built and force me to make decisions that would permanently reshape our family dynamics. What I did not know was that Marcus had been preparing his own counterattack, and one of our most trusted allies was about to reveal their true loyalty in the most devastating way possible. The church meeting was scheduled for 2 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, but everything went wrong before we even arrived. At 11 that morning, I received a devastating phone call from Maya that shattered my faith in everyone I had trusted. "Seraphina, we have a problem." Maya's voice was tight with anger. "Someone from your family coalition has been feeding information to Marcus. He knows everything we plan to present today." My blood went cold. "What do you mean, everything?" "The financial records, the witness statements, even the federal investigation details that Robert shared with us. Marcus called me an hour ago claiming he had evidence that you fabricated documents to frame him. He knew details about our investigation that only someone in our group could have told him." I felt physically sick as the implications hit me. Someone I had trusted completely had been working against me from the beginning. All our careful preparation, all the evidence we had gathered, all the legal strategies we had developed. Marcus knew it all. "Who was it?" I asked, though part of me was afraid to hear the answer. Maya hesitated before responding. "I traced the leak back to Jennifer. She has been recording our strategy meetings and sharing everything with Marcus. Apparently, she has been playing both sides from the very beginning." The betrayal was devastating, but it made horrible sense. Jennifer had been remarkably well informed about Marcus's activities and had volunteered to help almost too eagerly. She had insisted on being present for every planning meeting and had asked detailed questions about our evidence and legal strategy. I had interpreted her involvement as family loyalty, but she had actually been conducting reconnaissance for Marcus. "There is more," Maya continued. "Jennifer has been helping Marcus hide assets and destroy evidence. She convinced him to transfer money to offshore accounts and coached him on how to make his theft look like legitimate family loans." I realized that Jennifer's betrayal went beyond just sharing information. She had been actively sabotaging our efforts while pretending to support me. Every strategy we had developed, every piece of evidence we had gathered, every legal move we had planned, Jennifer had given Marcus advance warning about all of it. The phone rang again almost immediately. This time it was Helen, and she sounded panicked. "Seraphina, something terrible has happened. The police investigation has been suspended because key evidence has disappeared from Marcus's apartment. Someone warned him in advance, and he had time to destroy financial records and computer files." "Jennifer," I said simply, and Helen's sharp intake of breath confirmed she understood immediately. "How long has she been working against us?" Helen asked. "Probably from the very beginning. She volunteered to help right after the Mother's Day confrontation, which means she was likely working with Marcus even before we exposed him." The scope of Jennifer's betrayal became clearer as Helen and I compared notes. Jennifer had been present when we discussed which evidence to preserve and which witnesses to contact. She had volunteered to handle communications with several family members, giving her opportunities to manipulate their statements or discourage their cooperation. She had even suggested specific legal strategies that we now realized were designed to weaken our case. But Jennifer's most devastating betrayal was still to come. At 12:30, just 90 minutes before the church meeting, I received a text message that made me understand the full extent of her duplicity. The message contained a link to a social media post Jennifer had published that morning. In it, she described our family conflict as a tragic misunderstanding caused by my mental health issues and my obsessive jealousy of Marcus's success. She claimed that I had fabricated evidence against Marcus because I could not accept that he was more successful than me. The post was carefully crafted to portray Jennifer as a concerned family member trying to protect everyone from my unstable behavior. She described our evidence as doctored documents and our witness statements as coerced testimonies from people afraid to contradict Seraphina's version of events. Most devastatingly, Jennifer's post included what appeared to be audio recordings of me making angry statements about Marcus during our strategy meetings. The recordings were edited to remove context, making me sound vindictive and irrational. She had been secretly recording our conversations and planned to use them to destroy my credibility. The social media post had already been shared by several family members, including some who had initially supported me. Patricia had shared it with a comment expressing gratitude that, finally, someone is telling the truth about this situation. I called an emergency meeting with Helen, Robert, and Maya to figure out how to respond to Jennifer's betrayal. We met at Helen's house, carefully checking to make sure Jennifer could not overhear or record our conversation. "This changes everything," Robert said grimly. "Without the evidence Marcus destroyed, and with Jennifer working against us, the legal case becomes much more difficult to prove." Maya was furious. "Jennifer has been running a sophisticated disinformation campaign while pretending to help us. This level of deception suggests she has been planning this betrayal for a long time." As we discussed our options, Helen made a disturbing observation. "Jennifer's betrayal is too organized and too effective for her to have planned it alone. Someone with experience in legal manipulation has been coaching her." We realized that Jennifer had likely been working with Patricia's lawyer from the beginning, feeding him information about our strategy while gathering intelligence about our evidence. The lawyer had probably advised Jennifer on how to undermine our case while maintaining her cover as a supportive family member. The church meeting was only an hour away, and we had to decide whether to proceed with our original plan or develop an entirely new strategy. Our carefully prepared presentation was useless now that Marcus and Patricia knew everything we intended to say. "We have one advantage they do not know about," Maya said suddenly. "I have been conducting my own parallel investigation, and Jennifer does not know about all the evidence I have gathered independently." Maya explained that she had been working with financial investigators and other journalists to document Marcus's crimes as part of a larger story about family financial fraud. Her investigation had uncovered evidence that even our family coalition did not know about, including proof that Marcus had been running similar scams on other families in different cities. "Marcus is not just a family con artist," Maya revealed. "He is part of a network of fraudsters who share strategies and target information. Jennifer's betrayal actually fits a pattern we have been tracking. They recruit family members to serve as inside agents who can sabotage investigations and discredit victims." This information changed everything. Jennifer's betrayal was not just personal disloyalty. It was part of an organized criminal operation. Marcus had recruited her specifically to infiltrate our investigation and neutralize our efforts to hold him accountable. As we arrived at the church, I realized that the confrontation ahead would determine more than just whether Marcus faced consequences for his crimes. It would reveal which family members were genuinely committed to truth and justice, and which were willing to participate in ongoing deception and abuse. But I had one final card to play that neither Marcus, Patricia, nor Jennifer knew about. And it would expose not just the financial fraud, but the entire network of manipulation and betrayal that had been destroying our family for years. The church fellowship hall was packed with family members, friends, and neighbors when we arrived. Patricia had clearly been working hard to ensure maximum attendance for what she intended to be my public humiliation. Jennifer sat in the front row next to Marcus, both of them looking confident and prepared for victory. What they did not know was that Maya had spent the previous night coordinating with federal investigators who had been tracking Marcus's criminal network for months. The FBI had been building a case against multiple fraud rings targeting family relationships, and Marcus's operation was a key component of their investigation. As Patricia stood to address the crowd, Maya quietly signaled to two people sitting in the back of the room. I had never seen them before, but their presence gave me confidence that our backup plan was in motion. Patricia began with a tearful speech about how I had allowed jealousy and mental instability to destroy our family. She described Marcus as a devoted son who had tried to help me despite my irrational behavior, and painted Jennifer as a hero who had risked family relationships to expose the truth about my fabricated accusations. The audience was clearly sympathetic to Patricia's version of events. Several relatives nodded approvingly as she spoke, and I could see that Jennifer's social media campaign had been effective in shaping family opinion against me. But when Patricia invited Marcus to defend himself, Maya stood up and addressed the crowd directly. "Before Marcus speaks, I think everyone should know that he is currently under federal investigation for wire fraud, identity theft, and organized financial crime. The FBI has been monitoring his activities for 6 months, and they have evidence connecting him to similar frauds in 7 different states." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Marcus went pale and looked frantically at Jennifer, who appeared equally surprised by this revelation. Patricia tried to regain control. "That is ridiculous! Marcus is not under any investigation. This is just another lie designed to—" She was interrupted when one of the strangers from the back of the room approached the front and displayed FBI credentials. "Actually, Mrs. Walsh, your son, has been the subject of an active federal investigation since August." We have been gathering evidence with the cooperation of multiple victims across several states. The FBI agent who introduced herself as Special Agent Rodriguez had agreed to attend the meeting as part of their investigation strategy. Maya's journalistic contacts had convinced federal law enforcement that our family confrontation could provide valuable intelligence about Marcus's criminal network. We are here today because Mr. Marcus Walsh and his associate Jennifer Walsh are suspected of participating in an organized fraud ring that has stolen over $2 million from victims nationwide, Agent Rodriguez announced. Jennifer jumped to her feet. "This is harassment. I have done nothing wrong. I have been trying to protect my family from false accusations." Agent Rodriguez smiled coldly. "Ms. Walsh, we have recordings of phone conversations between you and Marcus Walsh discussing strategies to intimidate witnesses and destroy evidence. We also have financial records showing that you received payments for your cooperation in sabotaging your family's investigation." The revelation that Jennifer had been paid to betray us sent shockwaves through the room. Several relatives who had been supporting Patricia and Marcus began looking uncertain and uncomfortable. But Agent Rodriguez was not finished. She activated a small recording device and played audio that made everyone in the room gasp. It was Jennifer's voice. "Do not worry about the family evidence. I have been feeding them false information for weeks. By the time they figure out what really happened, you will have moved all the money offshore and disappeared." Marcus's voice responded, "Perfect. How much longer can you keep them distracted?" "Jennifer, as long as necessary. These idiots actually think I am helping them. It is pathetic how easy it is to manipulate people who want to believe in family loyalty." The recording continued with Jennifer and Marcus laughing about how gullible our family members were and discussing specific strategies to discredit my evidence and undermine the investigation. Most damaging of all the recording captured Jennifer providing Marcus with detailed information about our legal strategy and evidence collection efforts. Patricia stared at Jennifer in shock and horror. "You have been lying to all of us. You have been working with Marcus to steal from Seraphina." Before Jennifer could respond, Agent Rodriguez played another recording, this one featuring Marcus's voice. "The beauty of the family scam is that people want to believe their relatives are trustworthy. We can steal from them for years before they figure it out, and even then they usually blame themselves instead of pressing charges." The agent turned to address the entire room. "What you are witnessing today is a sophisticated criminal operation that targets families and exploits emotional relationships to commit financial fraud. Marcus Walsh has been running this scheme for over 5 years, and Jennifer Walsh has been his primary accomplice within this family." Maya stepped forward with additional evidence that even I had not seen before. "My investigation revealed that Marcus and Jennifer have been running identical scams on 3 other families simultaneously. In each case, they identify a financially successful but emotionally isolated family member, then systematically steal their money while manipulating other family members to blame the victim." Maya displayed photographs and documents showing Marcus's involvement with other families in different states. In each case, the pattern was identical. Identify the target recruit, a family insider, to provide intelligence and sabotage investigations. Steal money over an extended period, then disappear when exposure becomes inevitable. The total amount stolen from all victims exceeds $2.3 million, Maya announced. Seraphina's case represents the largest single theft, but she is far from the only victim. Agent Rodriguez then revealed the most shocking evidence of all. We also have proof that Marcus Walsh has been selling information about his fraud techniques to other criminals through online networks. He has been teaching courses on family manipulation and emotional exploitation, using your family's dysfunction as case study material. The recording she played next featured Marcus describing our family dynamics in clinical detail, explaining to other criminals how to identify and exploit similar vulnerabilities in their own target families. He discussed Patricia's need for validation, my isolation and work obsession, and Jennifer's willingness to betray family for money as examples of psychological weaknesses that could be manipulated for profit. Patricia broke down completely when she heard Marcus analyzing her personality and parenting failures as tools for criminal manipulation. The son she had defended so fiercely had been using her love and pride as weapons against her own daughter while teaching other criminals to exploit similar family relationships. But the revelation that truly changed everything came when Agent Rodriguez announced that several other family members had been secretly cooperating with the federal investigation for months. Helen Walsh, Robert Walsh, and 3 other family members have been working with federal investigators to gather evidence and protect potential victims, the agent revealed. They approached us after realizing the scope of Marcus's criminal activities and their concern that he would victimize other families if not stopped. I looked at Helen with gratitude and amazement. She had not just been supporting my effort to recover stolen money. She had been working with federal law enforcement to prevent Marcus from destroying other families. The room was completely silent now, except for Patricia's quiet sobbing. Marcus sat frozen, apparently unable to process that his carefully constructed web of lies had been completely unraveled by federal investigators. Agent Rodriguez concluded by announcing that Marcus and Jennifer would be arrested immediately on federal fraud charges and that additional arrests were expected as the investigation continued. But the most satisfying moment came when she turned to me and said, "Ms. Walsh, the federal government will be seeking full restitution for all victims, including recovery of assets that were hidden offshore. Our preliminary asset recovery efforts have already located over $1.8 million in accounts that Marcus believed were untraceable." The arrests happened immediately after Agent Rodriguez finished speaking. Marcus and Jennifer were handcuffed in front of the entire family, their confident facades crumbling as federal marshals read them their rights. Patricia watched in stunned silence as her golden child and her trusted niece were led away in custody, finally understanding the full scope of their betrayal. The weeks that followed brought a cascade of revelations that completely transformed our family dynamics. The federal investigation uncovered evidence that Marcus's criminal activities had started much earlier than anyone realized. He had been stealing from family members since college, beginning with small amounts taken from birthday and Christmas gifts, then escalating to systematic fraud once he identified me as his primary target. Maya's journalistic investigation revealed even more disturbing details. Marcus had been documenting his manipulation techniques in detailed journals that he shared with other criminals online. His entries described specific strategies for identifying emotionally vulnerable family members, techniques for turning relatives against each other, and methods for maintaining criminal operations while avoiding detection. Most shocking of all, Marcus had been recording private family conversations for years and sharing them with his criminal network as training materials. Patricia's expressions of love and pride, my moments of frustration and self-doubt, even intimate family discussions about personal struggles, all had been broadcast to strangers as examples of psychological weaknesses that could be exploited for profit. The financial recovery process moved quickly once federal investigators began seizing Marcus's hidden assets. The offshore accounts Jennifer had helped him establish contained not just my stolen money, but funds taken from dozens of other victims across the country. Within 2 months, I had recovered over 90% of my losses, along with interest and penalties that Marcus was required to pay as part of his plea agreement. But more important than the financial restitution was the transformation in our family relationships. Patricia, devastated by the revelation of Marcus's manipulation, began attending therapy to understand how she had been deceived and to address the family dynamics that had enabled years of abuse. Her first conversation with me after the arrests was heartbreaking, but necessary. "Seraphina, I failed you completely as a mother," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I was so desperate to believe that Marcus was successful that I ignored obvious warning signs and blamed you for problems he was creating. I do not know how to make up for the years of emotional abuse I put you through." Patricia's therapy sessions revealed that her favoritism toward Marcus had deeper roots than simple pride in his supposed achievements. Her therapist helped her understand that she had been living vicariously through Marcus's fabricated success because she felt insecure about her own life choices and accomplishments. "I convinced myself that having a successful son proved I was a good mother," Patricia explained during one of our difficult but healing conversations. "When Marcus told me he was supporting me financially while you were being selfish, it fit the narrative I wanted to believe about my own worth." The healing process was slow and sometimes painful, but Patricia's genuine remorse and commitment to change made reconciliation possible. She began making amends not just through words, but through concrete actions, including public statements to family members correcting the false narratives she had spread about me for years. The federal case against Marcus and Jennifer moved through the courts with devastating efficiency. Faced with overwhelming evidence and testimony from multiple victims, both pled guilty to avoid lengthy prison sentences. Marcus received 8 years in federal prison, plus restitution requirements that would follow him for the rest of his life. Jennifer received 4 years, plus mandatory community service involving financial crime victim advocacy. During the sentencing hearing, I was given the opportunity to address the court about the impact of their crimes. Standing before the judge, I spoke not just about the financial theft, but about the systematic emotional abuse that had been perpetrated alongside the fraud. "Your Honor, the money Marcus stole was devastating, but the psychological manipulation was worse," I testified. "He did not just take my savings. He weaponized my mother's love against me and turned family gatherings into opportunities for public humiliation. He stole my sense of belonging and self-worth while teaching other criminals to inflict similar abuse on their own families." The judge's response was powerful and validating. "Mr. Walsh, your crimes represent a particularly heinous form of family violence that exploits the deepest human need for love and acceptance. You have betrayed not just financial trust, but the fundamental bonds that hold families together." Maya's investigative reporting on our case won a National Journalism Award and helped expose similar fraud rings operating across the country. Her articles led to congressional hearings on family financial fraud and new federal legislation protecting victims of relationship-based financial crimes. But the most meaningful changes happened within our reconstructed family relationships. Helen Robert and the other relatives who had supported the investigation became closer to me than ever before. We had been through a crisis together that revealed everyone's true character and values. Patricia and I began building an entirely new relationship based on honesty and mutual respect, rather than the toxic dynamics that had defined our interactions for decades. She started attending my business presentations and genuinely celebrating my professional achievements, often telling people proudly about my consulting success. The experience also led me to form what I now consider my chosen family. The group of people who stood by me during the darkest period of my life and helped me fight for justice. Maya, Helen, Robert, and several other relatives and friends have become my true family, bound together by shared values and genuine care, rather than mere blood relations. A year after the arrests, I established a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping victims of family financial fraud. Using my own experience and the knowledge gained from the federal investigation, we provide support services, legal assistance, and emotional counseling for people who have been victimized by relatives and trusted family members. The organization has already helped over 200 families recover stolen assets and rebuild damaged relationships. Most importantly, we have developed educational programs that help people recognize the warning signs of family financial manipulation before it destroys their lives and relationships. Looking back on this experience, I realized that Marcus's crimes, while devastating, ultimately revealed truths about our family that needed to be addressed. His manipulation had been possible only because our family dynamics were already unhealthy with favoritism, emotional abuse, and poor communication, creating vulnerabilities that he could exploit. The forced reckoning that followed his exposure has created opportunities for genuine healing and growth that might never have happened otherwise. Patricia and I now have the honest, respectful relationship I had always wanted, but never believed was possible. Have you ever discovered that someone you trusted was working against you the entire time? Have you experienced family betrayal that made you question everything you believed about loyalty and love? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your stories help other people feel less alone in their struggles. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life tales about justice, family drama, and the power of truth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it is possible to overcome family manipulation and build healthier relationships. Thank you for listening to my story and for being part of this community where we support each other through difficult family situations. Remember, you deserve relationships built on genuine love and respect, not manipulation and lies. Sometimes the family we choose becomes more important than the family we were born into, and that is perfectly okay.